Thank you for tuning in once again to his Vine and Fig Tree podcast. My name is Kurt Olson. I'm your host. Um, Coming to you in the early afternoon on May 28th, 2025, and just a few things to bring to your attention here as we are at this start of summer. The unofficial start of summer is Memorial Day. A lot of states are out of school. Colleges are done now. And we have a bunch of things that um, are indications that we've lost kind of a perspective on the importance of Memorial Day. Um, we have cities and towns all across this country. Some parades are bigger than others, but it ends at a cemetery. There is a local pastor or a military veteran who gives a few remarks about honoring the sacrifice of people in the military from that community. And um, I think there's a lot of reasons why this holiday has lost its significance. Part of it could be education, part of it could be the media, part of it could be just our culture where there's been less emphasis and importance put on the military and military service in recent years. And uh, this is a good thing to remember. Um, May those who've been killed in service on behalf of our country, uh, November, honoring veterans past and present who have served. And this is just an important thing for us to do as a country. And um, I have had, I have not served in the military, but I've had uncles, cousins, others who have served in various conflicts um, over time. And I mean, the good news was they came home. But for a lot of families, that is not the case. And there are things we take for granted as Americans that would not be happening without the service and sacrifice of those men and women. And downplaying it and disregarding it and just turning the day into, oh, let's do a cookout, a picnic, go to the beach, whatever. Um, yeah, that's part of it and has become part of it. But real encouragement to not lose perspective on what Memorial Day is all about. Secondly, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. The leaders of those countries in recent weeks, as the conflict between Israel and Hamas has continued, they have made statements directed at Israel that would indicate they are becoming less supportive. Now, have they turned a corner and becoming hostile? No. Um, but there has been some movement there based on recent events. And with all things with Hamas, I think the public and even leaders around the world fail to understand all things with Hamas is not what they seem. And it's very easy to make certain statements by knee jerk reacting to things that might be in the news without really understanding whether that information is true or not. And Even Donald Trump has had some heated conversations with Benjamin Netanyahu in recent weeks, primarily over the fact that Israel wants to bomb Iran for its continued development of its nuclear program. And Trump is sitting down with the Iranians at a table and trying to work out an agreement. So there's that happening even on this side. This will be interesting to watch as time unfolds here, especially during Trump 2. Um, is this going to become more of a trend? But we've crossed the 600-day mark of these hostages taken captive on October 7, 2023, and so many of them are no longer alive. Usually, what happens is the International Red Cross will go in when something like this happens just to find out the well being of the people who are now captives. That did not happen here. And Israel certainly is by no means perfect. America is not perfect. But this idea that we can just kind of um, accept at face value any information that is regarded as benefiting Hamas, I would warn people seriously, uh, maintain perspective because a lot of times those people are engaged in propaganda, misinformation, solely to gauge get the sympathies of people from around the world. Next issue. While we're talking about Palestine, a week ago this evening, two people, a young couple, were coming out of a museum. I believe it was in Washington, D.C., not New York City. And a person by the name of Elias Rodriguez shot both of them dead in cold blood. Now, in the days after that, we have seen some reporting from the New York Post, and I might, I think I'll link that in the details of this podcast so people can access it. Um, it's a lengthy report that talks about a guy by the name of Neville Singham who is connected to various groups that have been involved in um, uh, certain groups connected to Elias Rodriguez. And this guy was from Chicago, active in some very, very left wing groups that could very easily be considered communist in their political leanings. And this guy shoots a couple that was on the verge of being engaged simply because they were Jewish. And this is something that happened. You go back in December, and the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, was shot in cold blood on the streets of New York City by what is believed to be Luigi Mangione. And this is becoming a trend on the left for some reason. We have people who think it is acceptable that because so and so identifies with whatever the group, or so and so is, you know, whoever is regarded as the bad guy at the moment, and they can take matters into their own hands and engage in violence. There's been some polling in recent months that indicate that people left of center are supportive of the assassination of Donald Trump and even the assassination of Elon Musk. And at some point in left wing politics in this country, it became acceptable for people on the left to think violence and eliminating someone because of whatever the grievance is somehow acceptable. I mean, we are 5 years separated from the George Floyd riots. What did it get us? It got us a bunch of states who now let bad people do whatever they want. In some cases, not even prosecuted, and people knowing that they're going to be let out of jail if they get arrested. Um, these things don't go end well. They don't go in a good direction for any society. And there are people in the leadership of the left in this country. Um, name a variety of Democrats: Barack Obama, Bill and Hillary Clinton, a variety of others, even members of Congress, who need to come out and tell the people on their side, people who would tend to agree with people on the left politically, that those kinds of actions are not acceptable in this society. And until that happens, my concern and fear is we're going to see more of this rather than less of this. The big beautiful bill. First of all, I think this piece of legislation is just ridiculously named. Or whatever they're doing to talk about it or whatever is whatever. But this thing was passed in the House a week ago. It's going to be brought up in the Senate, and whether it's able to survive there is anyone's guess. And this is a bill that has Trump's tax cuts. This has a lot of the policy things that Trump wants to get accomplished here. And I just want to read a couple things. Two things emerged on X this morning, and some people have been critical that Doge cuts were not part of the big beautiful bill that emerged in the House. Stephen Miller, who was an advisor to President Trump, wrote the following just this morning. No, he wrote this yesterday morning, Tuesday morning instead of Wednesday. Doge cuts are discretionary spending. Examples: the federal, i.e., the federal bureaucracy. Under Senate budget rules, you cannot cut discretionary spending, only mandatory in a reconciliation bill. So Doge cuts would have to be done through what is known as rescissions package or an appropriations bill. The big beautiful bill is not an annual budget bill and does not fund the departments of government. It does not finance our agencies or federal programs. Instead, it includes the single largest welfare reform in American history, along with the largest tax cuts and reform in American history, the most aggressive energy exploration in American history, and the strongest border bill in American history, all while reducing the deficit. That last line there he uses, while reducing the deficit, is just garbage. Spending is going to continue, and deficits are going to balloon. Um, I don't know what the Senate's going to do. I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen Senator Ron Johnson, Republican of Wisconsin, says he has the votes to kill it. Um, I don't know why they would want to screw around with the president because this entails some of his priorities. Why they wouldn't get on board with that as Republicans, I don't know. And I haven't seen explanations that go that direction. But I do want to bring one more thing to your attention here that involves the Doge cuts. Because this is something that I've been extremely critical of in this Congress. I realize Speaker Mike Johnson is dealing with a razor thin majority of Republicans. But I do not regard him as an effective House Speaker. Um, I find him incredibly disappointing, and I'll leave it at that. But I want to add something else. This was just this morning. This came from Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Um, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Republican representative from Georgia. Not a fan of her at all for a lot of different reasons, but we do agree um, that deficits and our overspending is getting this country in a lot of trouble. So, just reading something that she had on X just this morning. I was told that we are going to see the first Doge cuts bill on Monday. Um, obviously, June 2nd. Foreign aid and NPR and the Center for Public Broadcasting are on the chopping block. I have not seen the bill yet, but I'm just passing on what they told me. Personally, I want to pass Doge cuts every single week until the bloated, out of control government is reined back in. As a country, we cannot survive our national debt, and honestly, we may be past the point of return. We should be aggressively attacking our debt and aggressively cutting all waste, fraud, and abuse and unnecessary programs. Our future literally is in peril. Um, I don't think she's engaging in hyperbole there at the end. I don't. Um, because the the debt that our government has just prior to the House passing this bill last week, Moody's, which is uh, a government crediting firm that basically grades what your debt can be graded at. Moody's downgraded the U.S. and they are concerned about long-term debt. So while the House was on the verge of dealing with this bill, Moody said, "We don't think you guys can do the right thing, and we're going to downgrade the U.S. credit rating." Um, so those are things that are in play here. Um, I'll have more to say once we see what the Senate does. Um, but the big beautiful bill is just a couple posts here in the last couple days. Yesterday by Stephen Miller, this morning by Marjorie Taylor Greene, that bring in perspective a couple things. And as far as Doge cuts go, I'll believe it when I see it. Um, there's too many things regarding this Congress, House and Senate, that drive disappointment, and I'm going to leave it at that. Um, One of the things that has gotten attention here in the last week or so here, has been how the U.S. is going after South Africa hard for the genocide of whites in South Africa. And as I have seen all of these stories and reports and broadcasting news segments, what about the genocide of Christians in Nigeria? What about the genocide of Christians in Congo? What about the genocide of Christians in China or North Korea? What about the genocide of Uyghur Muslims in China? I will not get on a train that dealing with the genocide that focuses on just one country. Um, there have been some bad things happening in South Africa. I will give these people that. But where I sit, the persecuted church has been roundly ignored by the media and predominantly by a lot of leaders around the world. And it is about time this issue got the attention it deserves. I'm going to end this podcast with two other stories. And I'm going to tell you, folks, shocking. Surprising, no. But the details are are a bit shocking. Okay, so there was a hearing late last week um in a I believe it was the Senate Appropriations Committee. And the Secretary of Energy, last name I believe Wright, Wright, was talking to the senators, and he was revealing that in the 76 days between Trump winning the election and Joe Biden leaving office, 76 days, the Biden Department of Energy approved $93 billion worth of projects. Secretary Wright was basically indicating that many of these projects did not get their due diligence. Basically came in with promises rather than legitimate plans. And the $93 billion that was spent in a course of 76 days was more than the Department of Energy had spent on these kinds of programs in the previous 15 years combined. Now, Joe Biden's Secretary of Energy was former Michigan Governor Granholm. And it would be wise for the Congress, both houses, to engage in some hearings that have the power of charging people with perjury if it is found out that they lied, because they need to get to the bottom of this. I mean, this is just so staggering in the amount. I mean, they were spending more than $1 billion a day, just shoving it out the door. And I don't think it's being hyperbolic to suggest that not only waste but fraud could be involved in this what was done. And Secretary Wright was promising to get to the bottom of it and pass along the necessary information to the Department of Justice. So we'll see what comes of that, but it is just something else our government has done because they think they can get away with it. And speaking of getting away with it, this came just this morning, and I'm going to link this in the uh, details of describing this podcast. I'm going to do that as well. News Nation. News Nation is one of these news organizations that have emerged in recent years with getting a lot more attention. And some cable companies will have it as an option. News Nation had an exclusive report from a whistleblower in the Department of Agriculture. So, what this person was saying was there was a loan forgiveness program that was directed toward farmers. And the only people who could access the loan forgiveness program were farmers who were every color but white. It's a clear DEI program dedicated toward relieving debt and uh, forgiving loans of farmers of various colors, ranging from Eskimos to Native Americans to blacks, Pacific Islanders, and others. And anyone had access to it unless you were white. And one of the things that helped expose this program was, and News Nation talks to the farmer in the just shy of a 4-minute piece there. And this guy sued the federal government over it and got a judge to rule in his favor as well. But the story this whistleblower was saying is the people who push this program are still in power at the Department of Agriculture, and they have yet to be rooted out. Now, let me just say this. The person who was the head of the Department of Agriculture under Trump, Brooke Rollins, is a former boss of mine in Texas. Brooke Rollins was the executive director. She was president, head, and whatever the title was. And I'm not saying this to uh, be disrespectful. I'm saying just because it was a number of years ago for me, it's well over 10 now, and I'm forgetting what her title was at the time. And I'd even have to go, I would have to go to her uh, resume and bio to remind myself what her title was. It was either president or executive director. The point is this: Brooke Rollins is a sharp lady, one of the sharpest bosses I've had the pleasure of working for, and she embraces change. She is someone who has already taken some actions in the Department of Agriculture to undo some of the stuff that was going on with Biden. And these people who are supposedly just still kind of hanging around, um, that were involved in this $800 million program that was a pure DEI giveaway. Um, my guess is she finds out who those people are, and they're going to be on the way out. I'm pretty much guaranteeing it. Um, and that will be so. There will be three things I put in the details of this podcast that I create every week. Um, the story from the New York Post on Elias Rodriguez and his connections to communist groups. And there are some details there that are pretty shocking, but it's a long story. You can read it at your leisure. The second one is going to be the News Nation piece, that is focused on this $800 million loan forgiveness program to farmers of color. And the third thing I'm going to include there is I came across this just the other night, and this 6-year-old Russian kid is a genuine prodigy, piano player, just remarkable. This this thing runs almost 10 minutes. Um, you can see whatever amount that you want if you're inclined to, but the kid is an absolute genius, playing a Mozart piece, um, for an audience, with an orchestra. Um, so that's all I have for this week. Just a reminder that we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube. I have a fresh column dropping on Sunday regarding Pope Leo the 14th. And until next time, God bless and goodbye.